tag application proposal to accept tag applications online only beginning in 2013. Bob Haughian.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bob Haughian, Chief of the Operations Division. You recall at your September meeting we had an informational item where we were proposing to go online only for big game tag applications. So what I want to do is very briefly address that paper from that time, and then we'll go into the survey results. So if you recall, we identified the fact that we have a number of tag applications that are online only now. It's just the big game tag application process is a combination of paper and online. For 2012, we had approximately 2,300 people that did paper-only applications, so we're at about a 96% online-only application process. We also identified by counties. Elko County had the highest rate of going online only, or not online only, but doing online applications there, over 97%. And Mineral is about 89%, so you could see the range there. We also looked at other states in the area. A number of them are online only, and some are going online only. So that seems to be the trend. Let's see. We also looked at Utah. Don Sefton Company supports Utah's online process, and they went online only in 2008. They saw a dip, but in the subsequent years, they saw a tremendous comeback from those that were doing paper only. They did come to the online process. We also highlighted some of the benefits for the applicants. For example, there's a few fees that are up front that they have to pay. We have a number of draws right now that are going online prior to this at Silver State and DreamTag, for example. Another benefit was we've seen the more people go online, the fewer errors they make. We see numerous errors with paper applications. Some of those can be corrected through the process depending on the timing, but in 2012 we had 111 paper applicants or applications that were rejected because of the errors. Going online, that basically goes away. At 96% online now, the department and systems consultant has pretty much seen the financial benefit. I mean, that's been over the last numerous years. So really the benefits that we're anticipating by going online, if that's your decision, are more administrative than anything else. So that was the highlights from your September meeting. And the direction out of that meeting was that we go ahead and do a survey. And we originally talked about surveying going back 4 years, but we knew this was going to be a manual process because we're sending paper applications, or we're sending paper surveys to applicants. So we knew we were going to have kind of an onerous process to capture that data when we got the information back. So we decided to go back, send surveys to those who applied on paper only for the last 2 years. And early on in the fall, we mailed out approximately 2,600 surveys, and we set a deadline for them to get it back by, and at that deadline, to our surprise, we had a 43% return on the surveys. We've received a number of them since. We're probably close to 48% return on the surveys, but I think you'll find that that's a pretty high percentage, but understanding that this is a pretty passionate group that obviously has an interest in wanting to know just where the commission is going to go with this. So if you look at the document that we gave you, we identified 2 basic questions, and then we had them rank order some potential responses. So basically the first question was, you know, if you have access to a computer, why have you not been you know, doing it online? Why are you doing it paper only? And so we gave them 7 options to choose from, and we asked them to rank order them. So for example, you could see on page 1 of that document, the first one, and there was no particular order for this, but the first potential response was, I have access to a computer, but I don't have access to the internet. You could see some others there. I have access to a computer and I have internet access, but my internet speed is too slow or my computer is too old. So those were an example of the 7 options they had to respond to us here. Then the second question, with some rank ordering process, we asked the question, if you don't have access to a computer, why aren't you doing it? And we basically gave them 3 choices. An obvious one was, I don't understand how to use a computer or have no desire to use a computer. We've heard that for a number of years. And another option was, for example, I don't have access to a friend or family's computer, or maybe a library is too far away. So anyhow, to get into this a little more, we looked at the demographics of the 1,100 that we heard from. We fully anticipated that those that don't do it online are an older group, and certainly the responses help us see that. Those 45 years old or younger, we have 12%, but we heard primarily from the group of 46 years old or older, 88% there. And we broke it down by residency. We sent out surveys to 75% of the resident applicants that we have, and 25% went to the non-resident. So that's the breakout of those that are doing this paper only. So then we broke it down further by county, because we asked them to tell us what county they come from or they're living in. And there was really a good mix through there. Esmeralda had the highest return, but understandably they have 4 people that have applied on paper only in the past. And actually we heard from 3 of those 4. All right, so now to get further into the detail of the responses, for those who told us that they have access to a computer but they don't do it online, Table 4 in there identifies the highest rank ordered reasons. And so of those that responded, 346 indicated that their #1 reason is that they have access to a computer with internet, but they don't want to submit their credit card information or other personal information over the internet for security reasons or fear of identity theft. The second one, they basically telling us they don't use a credit card. I heard some say that I have a credit card, but I only use it for gas. Others said, I don't have a debit or credit card. So that was the second highest rated reason there. Table 6 is the third highest reason. There's an objection to the internet service fees, the $2 or the $3.50, depending on residents or non-residents. And then the remaining 4 options are tables 7 through 10. Those are just based on the number of responses. They have access to the internet, but they don't know how to use the system, is one example. The one I found interesting was the lowest rated one. They have access to a computer and they have access to the internet, but their internet speed is too slow or their computer is too old. We had heard for a long time, that was kind of anecdotally, that was kind of a common response why people said they don't do it or they have issues with it. And I just found this one interesting, that was the lowest rated one. So while there's internet service issues out there, it's not as big as we perceived it to be. So then when we looked at the second question for those respondents who told us that they don't have access to a computer, this was no surprise either. The #1 ranked response was, I don't understand how to use the system and I have no desire to use a computer. And that's reflective, clearly in my mind, of the age group. I think most people would acknowledge that. So what I found interesting was you could lead a horse to water here. We gave them instructions, but for example, we asked them to rank order these. Sometimes they just put X's in it. That didn't help us. Oftentimes they didn't do any rank ordering, but they gave us comments. And what was interesting is, of the responses, we have about 400 written comments in there. And we've captured that all, but for the purpose of this document, I didn't put it all in there, but I tried to identify a representative sample of the kinds of responses that we heard. So you have 2 pages of unedited text, so you could see maybe some typos and that sort of thing in the last part of the report. And I found it interesting. We had a group that said that they were unaware they could do it online. I mean, that was a little shocking. Some other examples is, you know, an individual said that they've never looked at the online system, but they could get someone to show them how to use it. There were numerous comments about family members being able to help them. And then you go to the other extreme where people were very suspicious and worried about any type of internet activity. You had others that said, you know, during my business career I used IT equipment, but I vowed I would never use it again, so I'm not going to do it in this lifetime. So anyhow, that's the range of the type of responses that we heard. So I guess I have a conclusion point there. Other than the rank ordering, and I think that was pretty close to what we anticipated. We didn't find anything extraordinary in the results. And no surprise, those that had the greatest objection were in an older age. And so, though, for example, though, again, those that told us they have access to a computer, the #1 reason was that they don't do it is because of the use of the credit card. And those that don't have access to a computer, the reason why they haven't made an effort is they don't understand a computer and they have no desire to learn how to use the computer and the internet. So, looking at the CAB action reports, as of yesterday, I saw 7 that are posted on the website. And I saw that Eureka and White Pine County support this. Others, Lincoln, Carson, Clark, Washoe, Elko, don't support it, although a couple of them implied that they would support it if we did this in 2014 rather than 2013. So, Mr. Chairman, back to you.
I have a question, and you brought up Mr. Sefton in Utah. Maybe Mr. Sefton could help us out here, but what was the percentage being applied for online in Utah, and what was that dip? You said you saw quite a dip, and that's what concerns me the most about this. And the dip was mostly amongst elderly guys, and I don't want to be the guy talking to an elderly guy down the road.
Well, Don Sefton from Systems Consultants. I should point out we have what I think you'd call confounding variables the first year that we did it in Utah. Namely, they had always been $5 an app up until that year. They made the change to go to $10 an app that year. Number 2, they had not had a hunting license associated with big game. They had only a hunting license associated with small game. And they instituted the requirement to have a hunting license in order to apply that same year. And so it went from a case where a non-resident could apply for a bonus point and have $5 on the table to a non-resident had to put $70 on the table or $74 on the table to apply for the same point. And so was the dip because we went all online, or they went all online, or was it because they doubled their application fee and they instituted a license in the same year? And because it bounced back so dramatically the next year, it appears that the issue was the licenses and the application fees rather than going online. We did lose some people, and they came back, I think, in the second year. Like, of the folks that dropped out, I want to say that
2008.
Yeah, we of the people who actually dropped out, we had some numbers for them, but I think that 10,000 of the 12,000 came back in one of the years since 2007, and that pretty much mirrors the retention rate we have anyway in Utah and in Nevada. When you look at Nevada, we'll have, like this last year, I think we had 57,000 clients. 10,000 of those were new, and 10,000 or so dropped out. And what we see a pattern of is there's quite a few people who either go in and out every other year or come in once, apply, and never bother again. And so the retention rate in Utah, if you look at the 5 years subsequent, basically mirrors what they had before and also what we see in Nevada with or without all web.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Commissioner Rain?
you can go back over the total of the cabs. I know you said Eureka and White Pine were for it, and Elko and Washoe, and who else was said no? 'Cause
All right, here's what I saw looking at the action reports, and again, I went to the website, NDOW's website, where the cab reports are posted. They may exist, you may have seen it, but I've only seen them on the website, so there may be some disconnect there. But so again, I show those that indicated they might support it for 2014 rather than 13 are Lincoln, Washoe, and Elko. Although Elko said it was not agendized, but they did address it in their report. And then those that opposed it were Clark and Carson, and those that supported it were Eureka and White Pine.
Okay.
And I know there's a reference to the large number of cab representatives today, so I'm sure they'll have an opportunity to make further comment.
And then following up on that, I mean, we're looking at a dramatic difference in the age category. And I mean, are we discriminating against older people? Are we trying to run them out of business by doing this? Or is this just, yeah. How would that, is that an implication from 88% to 12%? Or is that just data?
Speaking as an old person, it sounds to me as, you know, what I'm hearing is that it's not so much of the person not being, you've got people who don't want to use the computer and, you know, may not have a credit card and don't want to learn how to use the computer. That's a very small chunk of this. The other portion of this, I think that's the issue, are the people who don't want to use a credit card because of privacy concerns. And it seems to me that that's an issue, and I will, you know, I think that is probably generational in some respects, but I think that's an issue that can be more easily solved. I mean, almost anything nowadays, when you do almost any kind of services online, there's only one way to get them, and that's with the use of the credit card. And over time, you know, the person the first year may not want to do it, but if they don't hear from anybody else who used the credit card through this process, and there were obviously a lot of people who use credit cards, then I think there might be more of a willingness. So I'm not convinced that it's, I think the people who, you know, it's a really small number of people who don't have a computer and who don't want to use a computer that you're looking at than what you would see from this 2,000, you know, this 2,300 number that you did. So I'm less concerned about those people who have privacy concern issues than I am about the, you know, that much smaller number. Am I correct?
I think generally you're correct. On a broad scale, I think so.
Commissioner Young?
To me, this is a no-brainer. It's a typical thing where I think, here again, we're not servicing our constituents. There's 2,400 people that want to use paper only. I don't think it's a system that's broken. We're doing this for convenience for NDOW, in my opinion. There are people in this state, and I think we need to get this. This is at the heart of rural Nevada. There are people that do not have internet access. We had a member at our CAB meeting that spoke on this eloquently of his place in Kingston, Nevada. There is no public library. He has no internet. He was explaining what it took to get on the internet to those 200 residents. And to me, it's a thing that's not broken, and it will resolve itself in time. Because clearly, I'm 56 and over. It's clearly that group of people. Let's respect them a little bit and just keep moving on like we are.
Commissioner Macbeth?
Don, could you describe your security protocols, and then also if you've ever had any security breaches?
Yeah. We, as people who accept credit cards are on the internet, we're subject to an industry oversight board that's called PCI, the Payment Card International, I think is what it is, but Payment Card Industry. And so we're considered a level 2 provider because of the volume that we do, because we do over 1 million charges. And so we have to have an assessment questionnaire. We have to have various levels of security. There's some things that we're prescribed from doing that we used to do. As an example, the wireless activity that you can do in here, We had that years before Indown. We had to suspend it as part of our credit card acceptance because they didn't want us to have a wireless protocol into our network. There's alarm requirements, et cetera. We also have to use a secure socket layer when you converse with our servers, so you see the HTTPS website ID, and there's a security certificate that we have to have with 128-bit encryption. Have we ever had a hack? No, knock on wood. But we have had 2 charges. We get about 24 to 35 charges per year that are disputed. Typically they are because a spouse sees the credit card and says, what is this about? And just reverses it. And we typically call up and say, this gentleman, and we have the Social Security number, applies apparently with his brother for a deer and a party, and you're saying that you don't want that to happen. No, God, I'll have a divorce if you, no, please, I'll correct that immediately. In 14 years of accepting credit cards, we've had 2 that were rejected or considered wrong. I won't say fraudulent, because in neither case were they fraudulent. In one case, the guy swapped a couple of digits, and he actually ended up picking up another credit card that was not his. The person who it belonged to disputed the charge. We contacted the gentleman, and he said, you're right, I flopped 2 digits. Here's the correct card. Gave us a number that was virtually identical to the one that was given, and we were able to restore the money to the first guy and take the money from the second guy. In the second circumstance, and it happened out in Winnemucca, there was a dispute where it was a domestic issue between 2 unmarried folks who split up, and one of their 2 credit cards was used, and we were basically told it would have to be a civil solution to the problem, and we were able to resolve it by getting the money. We've never had a breach. We've never had, we follow all of the contentions when they are purported very religiously. We check them, and we've never had one. With those kinds of things, I think it's perception more than reality. Living in a rural area, I've bought things over the internet, from computer equipment to all our supplies, to clothing, shoes, everything over the years. And I've never had a problem. I wouldn't hesitate to do it, and yet I have friends who say, I can't believe you use your credit card on the internet. And I use it not with one vendor, but with hundreds of vendors, and I've never had a problem either. But, you know, there's people who don't want to walk after dark, too. And are you going to say they're wrong? No. I mean, I think that if you're concerned, you're concerned.
Oh, just to follow up, aren't there credit cards that you can buy, like, you know, certain stores that are basically specific to a transaction, and so they have that alternative that they don't have to use their own card, but they can go out and buy a card? And
that's the case. You can go into Walmart and buy a card and put money on it, and you can recharge it with money if you need. So if you were to use that card in the draw to pay your application fees, and then you were successful in the draw, you could add additional money to it. That's a solution. There are people who are insolvent, even who have recently gone through a bankruptcy, and that's their solution to having a credit card. It's very difficult, for example, to rent a car right now, or even get into a hotel room without a credit card, and that's the way people solve that problem typically. It also would be a solution for someone who had concerns about their exposure on a card, is to use one of those as well. That's correct. And to us, we can't recognize the difference at this point. When they come through with that transaction, it looks for all the world like a credit card somebody's had for 25 years with their, you know, with their home checking account. So,
Commissioner Rain?
Well, and I don't know about the big box places, but I think as I said in the previous meeting, you can buy those cards at any fine, locally owned retail establishment. Not
I
just
apologize.
the big box, you know. So. Just throw that out there. And they are, yeah, variable. You can you know, it costs them a few bucks to buy it. Generally, the charges for one of these would be $4.95 to $5.95, and you can get up to a few $100 worth. for the cards.
On the ones you sell, they can come back and add to the same card as well?
It's everything. I mean, it just depends on what you want. Do you want ones that have a fixed limit and you can never add? Great, those are there. You want one that you can come back and add $1,000 to? Great, those are there too. And they're there at, it's not just the big box stores, it's at everybody out there. There's very few stores above a few thousand square feet that you can't get either way. And, some of the cards will have a $500 limit. Well, they might be calling you up here, I got 3 cards. I don't know, it probably never happened, but it could.
I'd like to address something Commissioner Young said, and that has to do with servicing a sizable segment of the population. And I think there's something to be said for that argument. While there's some benefit in terms of ease in doing our work, it's not going to have a financial impact on us, but it makes it easier to deal with folks who are on the internet. I was surprised when Bob got back responses from people. He turned one over to me where a guy claimed that he had applied for years in Utah and quit applying when they went on the web, and that he was still applying in Nevada and would quit applying if we went all web. And I have to be honest and say...
He gave us his name as well.
And he gave us his name.
The survey was anonymous, but in this case, he gave us his name.
And I have to be honest and say, usually when I see those kinds of statements, I find that when I track it to ground, it's not true, that it's just something they're posturing with. But I looked this guy up, and his last year of applying in Utah was 2007. He has not applied subsequently. Yes, sir.
And I agree with everything that you said. It's just, I happen to have an older relative that's in his 80s. There is nothing in the world that is going to get him to change his way of life. And I just think there's that segment of people out there, and I think it's what I said. It's going to resolve itself as these people die off. And it's a harsh thing to say, but it's just what we do in government. We should think about everybody, and they're not going to change their ways, and they're not going to. I still pay my bills with a check. It drives my wife crazy. I read the newspaper every day in the hard. She's reading it on the iPad or whatever it is. I'm not changing. And there's just those 2,400 people, and I think it'll resolve itself in 3 or 4 or 5 years. That's just my opinion on it. But I respect what you're doing.
No, and I was going to say, I think your statement that we have to consider those people is a valid one, because there are people who have put their money or withdrawn their money from where their mouth was. In this case, this guy absolutely did. He quit applying in Utah. They lost him as a client. And there will be, and I can't tell you of the 2,500 or however many people we're talking about, how many that will be the case. I can say that in Utah, that of the people we lost the first year, the 12,000, 10,000 of those came back within the next 5 years. And so some percentage of the 2,500, let's say that's the argument number, will come back no matter what, and we'll lose some.
I guarantee you those that came back, they did not do it, though. They had to get their kid or their grandkid or somebody else to come and do it for them. That's my only point.
Yep, and it's a valid point. Yep.
Any other commission comments? I'll take it out to public comment. Rex?
Rex Flowers, Washoe County Cab. We voted to support it, should it start in 2014, to allow for 1 year to advertise it, and now to put it on the website, put it out with all the applications. I believe that on the paper applications now you send out a postcard at this time, and then they can pick up their application. Well, state it right on there. State it on every piece of information you can. Give people an opportunity to have a look at it, review it. They don't have to make an immediate decision that, by golly, I'm not taking this anymore. I've had it with the government. They can think about it for a year. Okay? Thank you.
Come on, Mr. Janae.
Jim Janae, Lyon County Cab. We voted to go ahead and go with you on it immediately. One thing I do want to bring up is I've been around here for a few years. When we first went to the tag system, where we came in and you didn't have a license where you could hunt the state, we lost a bunch of people. I'm never going to apply again. Then we went to drawing for areas. Oh my God, we lost a bunch of people. Then we went to the area that we went to a draw. We lost some people. In fact, I hunt with some that was never going to apply again. And we had to talk to them, and finally they're putting in and they're doing it. This is the same thing. We've got our old people here. Well, I'm getting there. I would have beat my computer to death many times, but I still know that if I want to hunt, I've got to do it. That's what this boils down to. You're going to have some that get out. We hope that they've got grandsons and so on that walk in there and say, hey, Gramps, let's go hunt and I'll put in for it, and it's taken care of. I think it's something we just need to look. It comes and it goes, no matter what changes we make. So I think we need to go ahead, do it in 13, do it in 14. But I think we need to get it done and get it out of the way. It makes it easier for everybody. Thank you.
Glenn, you coming up or?
Art Johnson, Esmeralda Cab. Esmeralda, you mentioned, had the most paper applications, and there's a significant reason for that. We're extremely spread out, small population. I do it online. The first year you had it, my computer was through the phone line. I got dropped 3 times. Now I'm on satellite. Not everybody in Esmeralda County can go to satellite. Like I said, the phone systems are, computer systems are really not something that's worth using. And I know Commissioner Wallace is in the same valley that I am, and you know, he's on satellite as well. And those are, you know, unless you go to the high cost format, they're still problematic. So there's a reason why Esmeralda County has this trouble, and I just wanted to make that a point of discussion, because there again, there's absolutely reasons for that county, our county, and not being able to do online.
Glenn?
Glenn Bunch, Mineral County. We discussed this at our last 2 meetings, a month ago and our meeting the other day. Sorry we didn't get our minutes in, but we were busy doing other meetings too. But anyway, last month the board, we kind of drew the line, well, let's wait and see where this is going. And this month I advised them that it's picking up speed. We're probably going to be there. Because we discussed it a month ago, the board members were able to go and talk to their hunting partners, and the majority of those people were coming back with the same thing. They didn't trust the internet. They didn't believe in security. They didn't want to put their credit cards out. But bottom line, when we got to the end of the meeting, we're going to go there and we support it. Thank you.
Tom Casanelli with Humboldt County. We went over this. One of our board members, a young member, does all paper apps, so he was adamant about keeping it as paper apps. But the rest of our board knew this day was coming, and his reasonings were the identity theft, basically. He was really strongly against that. One thing that did come up was fee, the computer fee. A lot of the audience brought up that they wanted to have that changed. You know, if we're going to go all internet, there shouldn't be an internet fee. And I said that I'd ask. I really should know where that goes, but I didn't at that time. So I'd like to ask Don how that internet fee, where it goes. And
when we first put the draw applications available on the web, there was a significant additional cost associated with it. And the question was, who would pay for that? Would it be the paper app folks, or would it be the people who were submitting on the web? The most significant cost we have, and I pay over $300,000 a year in discount fees on credit cards. I guess if you don't have a small business, you may be unaware of it, but if you walk into a store and you pay $1,000 for a ring, the store does not get $1,000 from your credit card. If they're dealing with American Express, they might get $940. That $60 takes quite a few of those $2 or $3.50 fees to make up for that. If they're dealing with a MasterCard or a Visa, the percentage is lower than that. For us, it roughs out around 3%. And whenever I say that, people who are, Commissioner Rain just raised his eyebrows, but he is physically present when the card is there. I am taking it over the internet, and so I get a different discount rate than he does or than other vendors do, and that's because of the perceived, in spite of the fact that we personally have not had fraud, there's a perception that fraud is associated with the internet. And in addition, if somebody comes in and has a credit card, let's say that's associated with their business, like I have one that's associated with my business, if I use that credit card, instead of the vendor getting perhaps 3% over the internet as a discount fee, they get 5% over the internet because it's considered a commercial card. So there's substantial discount fees, again, close to $250,000 we pay a year in those. But there are also a lot of other costs too. We have to reconcile those charges. And whenever I say that, a vendor who takes a variety of charges says that's trivial. But I would submit that if somebody comes in and buys a $49.28 pair of shoes and someone else comes in and buys a $60.75 pair of shoes, parsing out individual transactions is trivial when you have a whole bunch of people who have the same dollar amount on your transaction, and you're trying to tick and tie those with the possibility that there'll be a duplicate transaction on one person and a missing transaction on the other that are in identical amounts. It's quite difficult to reconcile. So there's some costs associated with that. There are also costs associated with the actual internet connection. I pay $14,000 a month for a T3 and another $2,600 a month for a T1. So what we did was we said, what are our costs for doing it on paper? And there's one additional cost on paper that we don't have on the web, and that is we actually have to have somebody key it, a second person key it, and then a supervisor compare the two electronic images. For us, that's maybe 45 cents an application, and we offset that against the additional costs for the credit card, and we came up with the fees. Initially, it was $2 across the board. Over the course of time, we found that the non-resident charges were substantially more, and it's for a couple of reasons. One is that their license costs $134 to hunt, or $199 if they buy a combo license, and the fees associated with that, discount fees, are substantially higher than with a resident. By the same token, the deer tag that you pay $30 for, they pay $150 for, and the elk tag that you pay $150 for, they pay $1,100 for. So we worked it out, and we came back to the commission about 5 years ago, I think, and said, okay, our costs have gone up substantially, and as we look at it, the real issue is non-resident versus resident. So we threw out two possibilities. We'll charge everybody the same amount, residents paying for non-residents, and it'll be $275, and it worked out in terms of the numbers with 75% of the people being resident. Or we'll keep the $2 fee for residents, which is covering what they do, and raise the non-resident fee to $350. And that's not without precedent. If you look at the boat renewal rates in Arizona, for example, they have a higher rate for non-residents than for residents, and so they have a higher convenience fee than they do. If you go out to Ticketmaster or Ticketron or any of these and you buy something, you pay more if your expense is higher. In any event, we threw it out to the commission, perhaps an inopportune time because it was during the Tallman lawsuit, and there was a lot of frustration towards non-residents, and the general consensus was, why should residents pick up the tab for non-residents? If they cost more, let them pay more. And so we went with the commission approved a split fee at that time, $2 and then $350. And I think probably Commissioner McNinch is the only one who was here then that remembers the discussions. But in any event, that's kind of the background and basis of why we charge a discount, or excuse me, a convenience fee or transaction fee or internet fee, whatever you want to call it.
Well, thank you. I kind of had that, I knew that information, but I really wanted to get it mentioned today, and I told everybody I would. So thank
Good
you
question.
for that. And Humboldt County did support the change to internet.
Thank you.
Stan Zuber, Carson City, CAB. We voted not to support the change, and our reason is basically we wanted to support that 5 and 4% here. We looked at the reasoning or the benefits of going to this, and the first 4 benefits are elimination of pre-printed paper application, elimination of over-counter application, reduction of rejected applications due to paperwork error, and further reduction in mailing costs. We feel that these reductions that Endow would be benefiting from by going to this system could take place and still have a paper application available to the people that are in that 4% range. We feel that less paperwork can be applied by giving the applications to the local cabs. And Carson City is one cab that we felt that we could have workshops during the application period. And the people that do not want to file online could come to our workshop, and we would help them fill out the application to help reduce the errors and to get the information into Endow. Therefore, that is the reason that we were, what one cab member mentioned, we were drawing the line in the sand for that 5% of people. Thank you.
Mr. Reese?
Mike Reese from the Clark County Cab. I echo Commissioner Young's remarks. If it's not broken, don't fix it. As a cab, we voted no. But I want to give you a little scenario of what happened to one of the gentlemen that called me and said, look, I've never applied. Let me tell you, my granddaughter knows everything about cell phones. She taught me to text. She taught me to use a smartphone. But I asked her to do my deer application. She said, Grandpa, I'm not going to fill out a tag so you can go shoot a deer. I'm sorry, I draw the line somewhere. I kind of had to chuckle and said, that was a precarious situation. I can respect that. So I'll do anything else for you, but no. So